Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, and the Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. It was a great game from the Eagles. The Chiefs, they just kind of showed up. That's probably the worst game that they've played in, I don't even know how long, but pure domination from the Eagles on literally every single level. Comparable to that Seahawks-Broncos Super Bowl back in 2013. Like, it was that much of an ass-kicking. And also ended up being the highest-watched Super Bowl in history. A lot of people leading up to it were being like, oh, I'm going to boycott the Super Bowl. I'm not going to watch. Oh, it's rigged anyways. All of you are liars. That game, again, most watched Super Bowl in NFL history, and I don't even know if the Chiefs were the biggest loser of the night. To me, might have been Drake, but we're going to talk everything Super Bowl this episode, starting with the game. We'll talk about the Eagles, talk about the Chiefs, some off-season stuff too, because we are in the off-season officially now, and then a little bit of halftime stuff. I'll give the NFL Weekly Update. We are back to one episode a week now, so NFL Weekly Update will be every single week still. So a little bit NFL news and notes, and then what I'm doing for the rest of the off-season. Little plan ahead, that'll be at the end of the episode. But yeah, Super Bowl recap. Let's just get into it right now. And yeah, we can just start off with the Eagles. Eagles 40, Chiefs 22. And like I said at the top of the show, literally just pure domination from start to finish. Their defense kicked ass. The offense was humming. It was, I don't know, they truly did just kick the shit out of them. And Milton Williams, who had a great game. We'll talk about some more individual performances on the Eagles in just a bit, but Milton Williams said after the game that what fueled the Eagles a little bit was all of this three-peat talk from the Chiefs and the NFL actually getting the copyright of three-peat off Pat Riley, who, if you don't know that story, I'd look it up. I'm not going to go into details here, but and how, like, oh, the NFL was prepping for the Chiefs three-peat, and that fueled them. That gave them that little bit of extra motivation, and I don't know if it was that much extra motivation. Probably didn't need it with the way that this game went, but yeah, they killed them. It again wasn't even a close, and we can start off with the Super Bowl MVP, the Eagles defense, mainly Vic Fangio. I give Vic Fangio a ton of credit, and it sucks as a Dolphins fan sitting here and being like, our defensive coordinator from last year is now the defensive coordinator of the Super Bowl champion, and a lot of Dolphins players didn't like Vic, and I don't know if Vic wanted to be in Miami to begin with. I think he wanted to be the Eagles DC and then was passed up for Sean Desai. I think that was the in-house hire that they made after Gannon left, but he came to Miami. He goes back to Philly after we fired him after 1 year. And yeah, he's still one of the best defensive minds in the league. And he had so many guys to work with. Really, this Eagles defense deserves so much credit for how they played and how this game ended up shaping. And I mean, we can just start with this defensive line. They pressured Mahomes in the first half 47% of the time. 47% pressure rate. That was higher than Pat Mahomes' completion percentage in the first half. Absolutely unbelievable. And they didn't blitz. They blitzed 0% of the time this game because their front four was constantly getting pressure over and over and over again. I think they finished with 26 pressures on the day. The guys with sacks anyways. We got Milton Williams with 2 sacks, also had that forced fumble. Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks. Jordan Davis with a sack. Jalix Hunt with a sack. And the guys who didn't really show up on the box score at all, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, they were making big plays. Was it, again, not on the box score, but they got involved, and this defensive line deserves a ton of credit, and the Georgia boys deserve a ton of credit. I mean, Carter, Davis, Smith, 2 national championships and a Super Bowl in the last 5 years. What an just incredible run by them. Howie Roseman might have found another good edge player with Jalix Hunt, who got involved, made some plays in this game too. Interested to see if he kind of takes a bigger leap next year with some of these guys coming off. I also didn't even mention Brandon Graham, who was coming back from his injury. He gets to walk off into the sunset with another Super Bowl victory. The Eagles' defense was just out of this world. The Chiefs could not do anything at all. And I don't know if it was, and again, it's hard for me to sit here and blame Mahomes or blame the play calling and how things were shaping up, but it seemed like what the Chiefs had planned over the course of the 2 weeks was just thrown out the window. They couldn't use any of it because I don't know. The Eagles had basically an answer for anything that they did, and I mean, it doesn't even stop with just the defensive line. Zach Bond, a few really big tackles, had that interception, which was really nice. Oren Burks did his thing. The secondary, I mean, Quinyon Mitchell just wasn't targeted. I mean, obviously Quinyon Mitchell is awesome. He's had a terrific rookie season, but you think you would target the rookie in the biggest game of the year. I don't know. They decided not to. And then Cooper DeJean. A pick six on his birthday, wins the Super Bowl. Can't get any better than that for you if you're Cooper DeJean. The Eagles, again, it was domination from start to finish, and this defense deserves so much credit for the spots that they put the Eagles offense in with the turnovers, and they didn't allow a first down after the first play that the Chiefs had. The Chiefs' first play of the game, first down, boom, it's looking nice, and then nothing the entire first half, and basically nothing the entire second half until we get into garbage time, and we'll talk about the Chiefs' garbage time stats in a bit. But shout out to Vic Fangio, shout out to this defense. The Chiefs just had zero answers for them across the board. And yeah, I think I've talked about the defense at least enough anyways. I feel like I should be talking about more. There was just so many good plays that they made. But we can talk about this offense and talk about the real Super Bowl MVP. It was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts joins Joe Montana as the only QBs to throw for at least 200 yards, 2 TDs, rush for 50 yards, and score in a Super Bowl. It's just Jalen Hurts and Joe Montana with those marks. And I have been a big detractor of Jalen Hurts' game for a while now, and I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's a good quarterback. But like I said when I made my QB rankings last week, there is nothing Jalen Hurts can do in this game to make me bump him up any higher. And if you weren't listening to the show last week, I had Jalen Hurts ranked as number 14. And I stand by that. Jalen Hurts had a terrific game. He made all the throws he needed to. He had some really nice throws, whether it be to A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson even had some plays there. But at the end of the day, I think there are still 10 to 13 QBs who could have won the Super Bowl on that Eagles team too. This Eagles team was so good. It's so talented on basically every single level. And yeah, Jalen Hurts did exactly what he needed to do, and he played even beyond what he could have done, at least average-wise. But at the end of the day, I still don't think that Jalen Hurts, again, fringe top 10 quarterback, there is room to move guys around. And again, in my ranking, he's 14. If you want to shift him into 9, 8, 10, no real qualms there from me. But at the end of the day, I think that there are 10 other QBs in this league, at least, who could have went into this game and won the Eagles the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, just because what the Eagles defense did, they absolutely shut down the Chiefs offense on every single level. And they deserve, again, you can't give Super Bowl MVP to a unit, but the Eagles Super Bowl MVP was the defense. Jalen Hurts had a good, great game, but was he really the MVP of that game? No. Obviously, there was a lot of guys on defense who were deserving of it, but to get the award on defense, you need to have a special, special game. Cooper DeJean was probably a few plays away from getting it. Maybe if Milton Williams had one more sack and he finishes with 3 sacks and a forced fumble, I don't know. But again, I give Jalen Hurts credit for going in there, doing exactly what he needed to do, made all the big throws that he needed to, rushed at the times where he needed to, but at the end of the day, I still feel like there are 10 other guys who could have gone in there for the Eagles and had the same result. Maybe not 40-22, but I think a lot of guys could have been in there and it could have been 32-22, 34-22, either way. Because I think that the narrative now around Jalen Hurts, and I think this is kind of where it gets away from people. Like now that he has this Super Bowl, and that's usually what we mark greatness with in the NFL is, oh, how many Super Bowls they had. There's a reason why Tom Brady's considered the GOAT, because he has 7 Super Bowls, doesn't have the most MVPs, doesn't have the, well, he has the career stats, but I mean longevity, whatever. But to me, I saw someone like RG3 tweet out, it's like, oh, now that Jalen Hurts has his Super Bowl, he is amongst some of the all-time greats, and he's ahead of guys like Lamar and Josh Allen and Burrow like this year, and he's just not. Like, a guy like Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, a guy like Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. I'm not going to say mediocre, but like above average QBs win Super Bowls. Like Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Neither of those guys were ever top 5 QBs in the league during their primes. And the people who are like, oh, Jalen Hurts is a top 3 QB in the league, top 2 QB in the league, that's absurd. I think even putting him in the top 5 conversation is absurd. Again, top 10, you want to make that argument, I'm all for it. He's not in my top 10, but I think that we're over-hyping and overvaluing what Jalen Hurts does. Again, he did everything he needed to in this game, but at the end of the day, I still think that 10 quarterbacks in the NFL could have won that game for the Eagles, and that's all I'll say about Jalen Hurts. Congrats to Jalen Hurts. He deserves it. Great story. I mean, losing his job in college, going to Oklahoma, second-round pick, working his way up. Like, again, great story. He's a very good quarterback, but let's stop it with he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, because he's just flat out not. I think it's as simple as that. However, I am going to apologize to Nick Sirianni, the head coach. I didn't like Nick Sirianni, and Nick Sirianni is a culture builder in the eyes of like a Mike Vrabel or a Dan Campbell, or even, I mean, if we want to talk about the new hires, a guy like Aaron Glenn. He is there to oversee everything, and last year for them, it was really bad. And obviously, it was the defensive and offensive coordinator hirings that really derailed the Eagles season to some extent. And that's kind of where I was like, I don't know how Nick Sirianni, you being the head coach, having that talent of a team and having them fail so miserably. And he had a lot of, again, he made the right hires this offseason. Vic Fangio is probably going to be his defensive coordinator until Fangio retires, because I don't think he's going to take another head coaching job anywhere else. And Kellen Moore was a good hire. Again, I don't think that Kellen Moore did that great of a job with the Eagles. I mean, considering, the weapons, the offensive line, just everything was like when I can say that like Jalen Hurts is probably not your like worst starter, but like in terms of like the position groups where it's like, okay, QB, running back, tight end, offensive line as a unit, like the receivers, I'd say that Jalen Hurts is probably the worst one. Like, right? Like, I don't know. Hurts or Goddard, I guess. Either way, it's close. But all that to say is I don't think that Kellen Moore really did that great of a job with how elite of personnel that he really had to use. And we'll talk about him going to the Saints in just a little bit. But I give Nick Sirianni a ton of credit. Super Bowl champion now as a head coach. I mean, win percentage wise, he's one of the winningest coaches in NFL history at this point. And what really changed my tune was before the game. I was listening to, on my way up to Montreal, was listening to Pardon My Take. They had Lane Johnson on, and Lane Johnson was just basically saying that everyone loves Nick Sirianni. And again, when you just, I don't know Nick Sirianni. I obviously don't. But when all like a lot of people's perceptions of coaches and players is what the media tells them, and especially with coaches where you don't really get deep dives into their personalities, and especially coaches like Nick Sirianni who are just culture builders, rah guys, you don't really see what they're doing on game days particularly well either. So it's like, to me, I didn't get what Nick Sirianni was really doing other than just kind of being the guy and making the right hires. And the fact that, like, again, Lane Johnson, future Hall of Famer, is telling people that, like, no, Nick Sirianni is awesome. He is very good at this. Everyone loves him in this room, blah, blah, blah. Like, that means a lot to me that Lane Johnson is saying that about his coach. And yeah, I will start giving Nick Sirianni his dues. He has to find another offensive coordinator now. That is the one thing, like, unfortunate thing for the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, is I think they're going to be on their fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years, which stinks. But again, when your personnel is so good, it shouldn't matter. So all that to say, shout out to Nick Sirianni. You are, I still don't think you're a great head coach, but like, I'll start giving you the respect that you probably do deserve. Other players on the Eagles that we have to talk about. I mean, that offensive line took care of business. Again, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, who, awesome that, like, former rugby player, Australian guy who never played NFL in his life, or football, American football in his life, is now a Super Bowl champion. And then you got the guys on the interior, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens filling in for Jason Kelsey after he retired last year and stepped in admirably. They bring in Mekhi Becton, who, again, lots of injury issues in New York, and they move him into the interior to guard. Shout out to Jeff Stoutland for just being one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, and Becton looked great at times. And I love that story of a guy who had his injury issues, had his play issues, and was cast off by the Jets to be like, okay, like, you're not going to fit in here, go find something else. And he signs a small deal with the Eagles, he switches positions, and bam, he's a Super Bowl champion. Just, again, love hearing that stuff. It was very good. And then, yeah, these wide receivers too. Again, wasn't a huge day from any of them, but one of them I do have to single out. It is Devonta Smith. He becomes the 5th player in NFL history to win a national championship, a Heisman, and a Super Bowl trophy. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who he joins. It is Joe Namath. It is Marcus Allen. It is Desmond Howard. And Tony Dorsett. I think those are the 4, Smith being the 5th, and was also the first player in NFL history from Alabama to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I have no idea how that's just never happened. Again, you think about how good Bama has been, I mean, especially this century, but just Bama's been a great college school ever, and the fact that there's never been a player from Alabama to score a touchdown in a Super Bowl, that's absolutely insane to me. But yeah, shout out to the Eagles. They did. They absolutely whooped ass. Like, it was not even close. And oh yeah, the final thing about Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts becomes the first player in NFL history, or first quarterback in NFL history to win a Super Bowl with a visor on. So shout out to Jalen Hurts for that anyways. And what let's say, like, moving forward for the Eagles now, what does where do they go from here? So obviously they need to make another offensive coordinator hire. Do they hire from within? Do they bring in someone else? I'm not really sure at this point. I'm trying to go down Shefty's. There we go. And they have some big free agents that they have to address too. So most notable, Zach Bond, All-Pro, who was on a one-year deal with them. They would obviously love to bring him back, but he's going to be a very, very hot name on the free agent market. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Brandon Graham, who is retiring, so that's just kind of a non-factor, but he won't be there. Mekhi Becton. The rest of the guys are just kind of depth filler guys, so those are the main guys. And obviously, when you look at Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Brandon Graham, they have these young guys in there that they would like. They'd obviously like to add some more pieces, but the Eagles are relatively like intact, and a lot of it is because GM Howie Roseman, first of all, he's just drafting incredibly, but also how he structures these contracts where the Eagles have a lot of guys who are some of the highest paid players in the league, like per year, like average. But in terms of cap hit, Howie Roseman's doing this thing where he's giving them a bunch of void years in their deals and hoping that when they come up for a new contract, that void year money will also just turn into actual contract years and there'll already be money there, which it's a good plan for the short term. They won a Super Bowl, so it doesn't really matter, but like it could turn into a Saints situation if a few of these players don't really look great. But as of like right now, like Hurts is one of the highest paid QBs in the league. He's ninth or something for QB cap hit. Saquon, who was one of the higher paid running backs, he's on the low end. Goddard, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, like everyone, like the offensive line, all of the players are all like lower cap hit. So the Eagles are going to continue to be good, and there is no reason for me to believe why they can't be back in this spot next year. So many good, young, talented players who are still on rookie contracts. I'm sure that someone is going to fall to them at 32 for Howie Roseman to do his thing again. But yeah, I think that's it for the Eagles. Absolutely incredible season. And before we get on to the Chiefs, a little bit of a halftime show update. I personally really enjoyed it. Like, again, if you don't really know me, I just flat out don't listen to music. I only listen to podcasts. That might make me weird, but I obviously, like, I know the Kendrick songs, and I know Not Like Us and Humble and Squabble Up and yada yada yada, but I don't know. I thought Kendrick put on a very good performance. I mean, I thought that the shots at Drake with the Drake L chain, bringing out Serena Williams, who used to date Drake. I mean, the fact that the entire crowd, and the fact that, like, the mics could pick up on the entire crowd, like, yelling A minor is hilarious to me. Yeah, shout out Kendrick. He put on a great show. I personally loved it. But now, yeah, we can talk about the Chiefs, who really only showed up in the second half and really only showed up in that fourth quarter. I don't know, it's to me like the Chiefs' plan for 2 weeks we're going to stop Saquon. He's not running the ball on us. And if that was their goal, they absolutely succeeded. I'm pretty sure on the day, Saquon had like 25 carries for 57 yards. They stopped Saquon. And if you could have told any Chiefs fan that, hey, these are Saquon's totals for the Super Bowl, did you win the game? I'm sure 100% of them would say, yes, we won that game. We stopped Saquon Barkley. And they absolutely did not. Pat Mahomes played one of the worst games I've ever seen him play, and the advanced stats back that up. In terms of QB rating, Pat Mahomes had the worst game of any quarterback in the playoffs. That's including Sam Darnold's miserable performance against the Rams in the wild card, and also including Justin Herbert's wild card game with 4 interceptions against the Texans. Pat Mahomes, worse game than them, and it became in the biggest moment. The NFL also posted like Pat Mahomes' best plays from the Super Bowl. It started when the score was 34-0. That was late into the game, and that's when his highlight clip started. He had nothing, literally nothing in the first half. And then, yeah, the best play of the Chiefs game was that deep, long pass. And again, it was a beautiful deep ball from Mahomes to Xavier Worthy. Touchdown again. And that's what's kind of been missing from the Chiefs is taking these deep shots. And maybe that should have been part of the game plan all season. Maybe it should have definitely been part of the game plan in the Super Bowl. But the funny thing about that TD is that came after the Eagles have already dumped the Gatorade on Nick Sirianni. There was like 3 minutes left in the game when they dumped the Gatorade on him, which is absolutely crazy to me that they were able to do it that early. But again, that's just how badly the Chiefs got dominated in this one. And I really have no one who I can bring up that had a standout game, like other than Xavier Worthy, who Worthy in this one, 8 catches, 157 yards, 2 TDs, a lot of garbage time stats, but that ends up being the 5th most reception yards, or receiving yards, I should say, in Super Bowl history. And no one is ever going to talk about it because they got their ass thoroughly kicked by the Eagles. But yeah, I guess let's talk about legacy talks with Pat Mahomes right now. Obviously, a lot of people are basically in the camp that Pat Mahomes can never pass Tom Brady in the GOAT conversations, and I would agree with them. Obviously, there's a lot of time for it to play out. Pat Mahomes is only 29 or 30 or whatever he is, and Brady didn't win his 4th Super Bowl until, I want to say 37. That feels way too old, but that also sounds kind of right because he didn't win his 4th Super Bowl until... No, that's definitely wrong. Either way. There are lots of time. There was a 10-year gap between when Brady won his 3rd and then won his 4th. But Tom Brady played for a long-ass time and continued to play great even in his 40s. Even when he retired in 2022, he was still easily a top 10, maybe top 5 QB in the league at that point still. And it's hard to beat that level of greatness. And hey, maybe Mahomes comes back and he's pissed off and he plays like the Mahomes we've seen over the last couple of years, because the Chiefs offense, and there was a lot of talk about the Chiefs offense last year going into the Super Bowl and just in general about how it's just basically just wasn't good, wasn't functional. But in terms of like pushing the ball down the field, I think the Chiefs have been basically like first, second, like top 5 for most of Mahomes' career. Last year they were 9th, and then this year they were 22nd. They were just not moving the ball down the field, despite me personally believing that they had better guys for it. And obviously they miss Rashee Rice, and they'll get him back, even though he'll probably get suspended. But we're doing Mahomes legacy talks here. And one of the big reasons why I don't think he will ever be ahead of Brady is because Brady never got blown out in the Super Bowl, which is dumb to have that argument because, like, oh, if Mahomes would have lost to the Bills in the AFC Championship game, that technically would have been better for his legacy than losing in a Super Bowl, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but that's just kind of the LeBron-Jordan debate of, like, oh, well, LeBron's lost in Super Bowls more and more and blah, blah, blah. But Mahomes' Super Bowl performances also haven't been great. Again, he's had some great games, but there's never been a time where I'm like, Pat Mahomes is playing out of his fucking mind right now. And the stats kind of back it up. In his, what was that now? That was his 5th Super Bowl. He has 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Again, it's not great. And he's got blown out twice now. Again, got his ass absolutely kicked in this one. The Bucs game was also just equally bad. And obviously, lots of time left in his career, and I'm very interested to see how he plays next season. But, like, I don't know. This would have been, again, I said it a few weeks ago, but if he wins this would have left the door open for him to get there. I think the door is closed. And a lot of people say, oh, the door was always closed. He was never. That's just you being biased. I think that, yeah, again, unless he comes out next year and throws for 5,000 yards, has 45 touchdowns, they win the Super Bowl again. Like, I need to see Mahomes back to that elite level of play. He's still my number one quarterback for very obvious reasons. But his play has been, I kind of just want to say boring. He's not entertaining to watch, where even Brady in his like late 30s was still pushing the ball down the field and making wow throws, where everything from the Chiefs this year was boring. And you can blame it on, again, lack of talent for his weapons, like Kelsey getting older, Hopkins getting older, Worthy being a rookie, even though he really did play well the later half in the season. No Rashee Rice, Hollywood was hurt, no run game, like Kareem Hunt was their number one running back. Like, sure, maybe the talent wasn't great, the tackle situation for them also wasn't great, but I don't know, you expect better things from some of the greatest QBs. Like, again, I still think Pat Mahomes right now is probably third for me all time, with still lots of time left in his career. Brady's one, Montana's two, and then, yeah, I'd probably put Pat Mahomes three right now. Lots of time left in his career, but, like, I don't know. I just don't think he'll get there. Like, I think, again, it's a great career, but next season will be truly telling to me of, okay, is he going to be extremely pissed off that he got embarrassed in a Super Bowl? Or is this going to, not the beginning of the end, but are we just going to see Pat Mahomes coast until the end of his career? And I don't know. Only he can really tell you that, and only he can show it on the field of what he can do. But it was, again, disappointing from nearly everyone in that game. And yeah, I brought up Hopkins, and he said after the game that, there was a lot of touchy calls, and, are you guys going to talk about the refs now that it went the other way? And that is the most bitch answer that he could have possibly given. They got they got killed. This game wasn't even close. I could have been the one reffing and making all the bad calls, and the Eagles still would have won quite easily. Like, I could have been the one on the field rigging it for the Chiefs, calling everything against the Eagles, and the Eagles still, would have won by double digits, no doubt. The fact to even, bring that up is embarrassing. And I was cheering for DeAndre Hopkins. This is probably the only time he's going to be in a Super Bowl in his career. And to come out, make that comment after you had a really bad drop in the game, too, honestly, that's really embarrassing for DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion. And yeah, and we can talk about this offensive line because they got absolutely killed. And that is one thing. And the offensive line for the Chiefs, I think, was overrated for most of the season. And when I say this, their interior offensive line, when it was Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith, that is the best interior offensive line in the NFL. Now, Jawan Taylor, not living up to that contract, average to below average at best. And then when it's not Joe Thuney at left tackle, it was Wanya Morris. And Wanya Morris was also a turnstile worse than Joe Thuney. So they decide to move Joe Thuney over to left tackle, which he performed admirably. I'll say that. But at the end of the day, average to above average left tackle, and then you have a UDFA, Nick Caliendo at guard, still have Creed Humphrey, still have Trey Smith, and then you have, again, average to below average right tackle. So that's like average left tackle, UDFA guard, two really good players, and then a below average player. The Chiefs' offensive line was not some mighty strength that it was built up to be. Again, were they a good offensive line? Sure. I would love to have three quality offensive linemen in Miami right now, and that's what the Chiefs have. But that was the biggest weakness, and that's been the biggest weaknesses in their two Super Bowl losses have been the offensive line. And again, the play calling and the play design, you would think if they were getting pressure without even blitzing. So you know what defense they're going to be in the majority of the time. That's nickel. That's adding that extra defensive back on the field. And it didn't even matter. Despite them being in nickel and only rushing 4 the entire game, the Chiefs didn't run the ball whatsoever. I think Kareem Hunt had 3 rushes in the first half, and that's mainly because they couldn't get first down, so they just weren't running in general. But, like, the Chiefs, again, one of my keys to the game was Kareem Hunt needs to be effective. The run game needed to be effective for them, and it just absolutely wasn't. I mean, not including Pat Mahomes' rushes. 3 carries from Kareem Hunt, 1 from Samaje Perine, 3 from Pacheco. You can't have your running backs carry it 7 times in a Super Bowl game. It's just, I don't know. A lot went wrong for the Chiefs. Like, literally everything went wrong. They got absolutely whooped, and unlike the Eagles, they have a lot of quality players that they need to replace. So they have $11 million in cap space for this offseason, and they have guys like Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Charles Omenihu, and Kareem Hunt all hitting free agency. There's a couple guys there that are like, big replacements, like Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed. Like, those guys will be hard to replace for this team. The rest of the guys, again, very good contributors for them this year, and will also need to be replaced. So Brett Veach needs to have an absolute home run draft class this year. Like, he needs to find multiple people to step in and contribute right away, essentially. I don't know. Again, Chiefs aren't also a team with some big billionaire, well, they're all billionaire owners, but don't have the actual money to be like, okay, we can just sign checks, convert some of this cap space to signing bonus and get more cap that way. They could. You think that the Hunt family would have saved enough money over this massive run that they've been on to be able to give the Chiefs the most financial flexibility, but I don't think they're that smart. I don't think that they will. So the Chiefs are going to have a tricky offseason. And again, I want to see the best version of Mahomes again, because we haven't really seen that since 2022. 2023 was like a good year. This year, again, it wasn't that great. There were people clamoring, Pat Mahomes should have been in the MVP conversation. He just shouldn't have. And I don't know why there are so many people finding out, like, he's had the most game-winning drives in a season in NFL history. Winning close games against the Raiders, Panthers, Chargers, Broncos, that shouldn't impress anyone. Having a season where you throw like 25 touchdown passes, that should not win you an MVP. And the team's 15-1. MVP to me is like, it's a mix of individual success and team success. Pat Mahomes had the team success. He did not have the individual success whatsoever. Again, will be a lot of new pieces on this offense next year. They basically need to find a new wide receiver 3, 4, a new right guard, new running back. I mean, I guess Isaiah Pacheco's still there. Also, if you can hear the drilling or whatever's happening behind, sorry, they've been going at it. I thought that they were done, but they're just continuing. But it'll be a very different looking offense, and obviously the big piece that they'll be getting back is Rashee Rice. But even Rashee Rice, I expect that guy to get suspended for at least 10 games. And if he's not suspended for, that's the thing, I say 10 games, but if he's not suspended for at least half the season, that's a really bad look at the NFL. Like, that man caused a multi-car accident on a highway while street racing and then fled the scene. That is a crime. Like, he should get jail time for that if he wasn't an NFL player. And the NFL should suspend him that way accordingly. So I'm expecting a big suspension from Rashee Rice, and that means going into next year, it's Xavier Worthy, it's old man Travis Kelce, who, again, still a good player, but he is an old man at this point. Travis Kelce cannot be your main target in a game. It's Simple as that. Yeah, I think that that's it for this game. I think that that's it for the Chiefs. Again, they need a big, big offseason if they want to continue their success. I'll give Brett Veach the benefit of the doubt. He's done it before, but some big changes need to happen for the Chiefs, and I'm very interested to see which way they go for those changes. But that's the Super Bowl, and that is the NFL season. Was a great season, and yeah, I guess we'll start with the NFL weekly update before I get into my off-season plans. But I talked about it a little, but Kellen Moore is back. Not back, but he is the Saints new head coach. Again, I think the hire is okay. I think a lot of people just didn't want the Saints job in general. And Kellen Moore is one of those guys where it's like, okay, I'm getting offered one of 32 NFL head coaching jobs. He's going to take it. Like, it's hard to turn down that NFL head coaching opportunity, and I think that Kellen Moore is smart to jump on the chance. But again, I didn't think he had that great of a year with Philly, which is crazy to say given the team's success and mainly Saquon's success. But again, when you look at that personnel that they have on offense, where basically they have top 5 in every single thing on that offense except for quarterback, they don't have that in New Orleans. They have Chris Olave, who has a major concussion issue, and we'll see what happens there. And outside of that, they got nothing. They have a very old Alvin Kamara at this point. They have Tali Fuaga at left tackle. That is it. That is literally it. So again, Kellen Moore will probably get all the time in the world to build this team how he wants, but to me, and I said this before, the way I see this shaping out is whoever was going to take the Saints job, and it's Kellen Moore, they will get 2-3 years to figure this thing out, but they will continue to be in cap hell for those 2-3 years. The team will not succeed. I think eventually the ownership group will turn on GM Mickey Loomis, and Mickey Loomis will be out, and that means Kellen Moore will also be out, and then whoever's brought in after that will have a fresh slate to work with. So unless Kellen Moore really turns things around, which I don't see that happening, Derek Carr, again, there's nothing positive I can talk about for the Saints right now. And even then, like trade pieces, I don't know who you trade off this team because there's such big cap hits for a lot of these guys where if you trade them away, you're just eating more and more money. So I'm not envious of Kellen Moore. I am not envious of whoever is joining him on the staff. Brandon Staley has been a name that's been floated around for his defensive coordinator. Yeah, that's concerning to say the least. But yeah, I basically think that Kellen Moore is going there to fail, essentially, which is unfair. Again, giving him the benefit of the doubt. We'll see what he does, but I don't think that he will be. What year are we now? 2025? I think by 2028, Kellen Moore will not be this team's head coach. I think it's as simple as that. Deebo Samuel joins the list of players to be allowed to look for a trade. He went on, it might have been his podcast or someone else's podcast, being like, oh, the Broncos are looking really nice, and that's not a bad fit. Like, they just need playmakers in general. Yeah, for like to say that Deebo might be the best weapon on that team doesn't sound like a stretch because their weapons stink, and obviously Courtland Sutton's definitely better than Deebo Samuel at this point in their careers, but yeah, I don't know. Like, Deebo. He's lost a little bit of that athleticism that made him such a great weapon for the Niners, and again, I think he's a fine player at this point. I don't know what the trade market would get him, like a 5th-round pick. Like, I would do that if I'm the Niners. If I get a 5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel, that sounds great to me. But, yeah, another player who is on the trade market and should be a very, very busy trade market. And then finally, the NFL awards, the Hall of Fame was announced. We'll start off with the Hall of Fame. Four candidates making it in. We have Antonio Gates, most TDs by a tight end all time. I mean, just Charger legend. Probably should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer because he got suspended for PEDs late in his career. Jared Allen makes it in. One of the better edge rushers of like this century, anyways. Longtime Viking, very, very, very good player, and Hall of Famer, obviously. And then we have a guy named Eric Allen, who was a DB for the Eagles in the 80s, I believe. And this is one of the ones where I'm like, I see that name, and it's like, I don't really know how good this guy was. He had over 50 interceptions in his career. Very good player, obviously, long time waiting. And then the final guy making it in is Sterling Sharpe, Shannon Sharpe's brother. They become the first brothers to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, obviously snubbing the Manning family, who this would have been Eli's first chance to get into the Hall as well. And congrats to all of those guys. And I'll talk about Sterling Sharpe just a little bit more. I was going to this year, there was going to be, for my Hall of Very Good, I was going to start doing some senior candidates. And Sterling Sharpe would have been my first induction into the Hall of Very Good as a senior candidate. And now he's in the Hall of Fame, so congrats to Sterling. But basically, had his career shortened by a neck injury, only played 7 seasons, but in those 7 seasons, he still finished second or third in basically every single receiving category for the 90s, only behind Jerry Rice, of course. So Sterling Sharpe, at the peak of his career, was one of the better players in the NFL by quite a bit. So shout out to Sterling Sharpe, but there was a lot of talk about, players missing it, not making it. Luke Kuechly, people were like, how wasn't he first ballot? And it's like, again, when you have a shorter career, you got to wait a little bit. Luke Kuechly will probably get in next year, but the one that a lot of people were really mad about is how doesn't Eli Manning get in? Eli Manning was not that great of a quarterback. Again, his two Super Bowl runs were absolutely incredible. And the fact that he beat Tom Brady twice that's why he's getting into the Hall of Fame, is off those 2 runs. Off his entire career, it's not that great. I think he finished with a 500 win-loss record. I personally don't think he was ever a top 5 QB over the course of his career. Is he going to make it there just because, again, the Manning name and of beating Tom Brady in 2 Super Bowls? Yeah, but people acting like it's the worst thing to ever happen to the Hall of Fame is Eli Manning not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's crazy to me. Eli Manning is, again, good, great, not top 5, but I think that, Lucy, do you have your toy? Yeah, do you have your toy? That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's some great injustice that Eli Manning isn't in the Hall of Fame. And Ari Meirov tweeted out that apparently it wasn't even close for Eli this time, too. And to me, that means that he might make it next year. But next year, there's also a guy named Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald who should both be first ballot guys. So I don't know. Eli is going to have to wait. And to me, my stance was always Eli Manning, Hall of Famer. Eli Manning should have to wait to get into the Hall of Fame. And we'll see how long he does have to wait. But if I were a betting man, and I don't know what the odds are going to be, and I don't know when Travis Kelce is going to retire, but to me, my money would be on Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce both getting into the Hall of Fame before Eli Manning does. And they will become the second group of brothers to make the Hall of Fame together. Again, that could mean 8 years from now, essentially. But to me, both Kelces are first ballot Hall of Famers. Jason Kelce, maybe. Travis Kelce will be a surefire first ballot guy. But I think that Eli will have to wait. There is such a logjam just over everything and any position for the Hall of Fame. And I'm happy that the voters realize that yeah, Eli will get in eventually, but Eli should not be considered over some of these other legendary Hall of Fame players. So that's all I have to say about the Hall of Fame. And then the other thing that happened on Thursday was the NFL awards. So we'll quickly go over them. Assistant Coach of the Year, Ben Johnson. Duh. Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell. That makes a ton of sense. Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Burrow. Sure. I just enjoy that Joe Burrow's trophy case is now 2-time Comeback Player of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. And again, people were mad Jaden Daniels wasn't a unanimous Offensive Rookie of the Year, and the one guy who didn't vote for Daniels voted for Brock Bowers, and that was Sam Momsen, formerly of PFF. I have no idea where he is now, but yeah, I don't. Again, people were so mad at him to be like, how could you take a unanimous Offensive Rookie of the Year away from Jaden Daniels? I don't know. Brock Bowers, who broke a 63-year-old record from Mike Ditka, who was a first team All-Pro, which means he was the best tight end in the league as a rookie. Maybe that deserves a smidge of Offensive Rookie of the Year votes. To me, that's who my vote would have gone towards too, because he had an all-time tight end rookie season. Jaden Daniels had a very, very good rookie year. Brock Bowers had a legendary rookie year. But I digress. We've heard this before from me. Defensive Player of the Year, it did go to Pat Surtain. That was great. I was worried that it was going to go to TJ Watt. It did not, but Pat Surtain gets it. That's awesome. Offensive Player of the Year went to Saquon Barkley. Ja'Marr Chase didn't even get a vote. And that's he didn't get a first place vote. He didn't get a second, third, fourth, or fifth place vote, and that makes absolutely no sense to me. And as I'm saying this, I'm looking it up because I don't believe that there is a way that Ja'Marr Chase could not have gotten a single vote for Offensive Player of the Year. So I'm just going to look it up again to verify, because I'm pretty sure that that's... Okay, no, it didn't receive a single first place vote, so I was wrong. But either way, we can go back into this, because, okay, it wasn't a unanimous Offensive Player of the Year for Saquon Barkley. So, other people were getting votes other than Saquon Barkley. So the fact that Ja'Marr Chase, the Triple Crown winner who led all receivers in catches, yards, and TDs, didn't get a single first place vote when, for the Cover Zero one, he tied Saquon for the award, where a lot of biased Bengals fans in there, but I don't know. I think that's absurd that Chase didn't get a single first place vote, but we can keep going. And then finally, MVP goes to Josh Allen. Another lot of controversy there. How does Lamar get first team All-Pro, but Josh Allen gets MVP? Well, because it's the same people who vote on the award, so it really doesn't make a ton of sense. But essentially what it came down to was all the people who voted for Allen first team All-Pro also voted him for MVP. And all the people who voted first team All-Pro for Lamar, 9 of them ended up voting Lamar first place for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So that, or not Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. So that means those 9 first place votes that went to Lamar for Offensive Player of the Year, those guys then voted Josh Allen for MVP. That's how Josh Allen became MVP. Josh Allen deserved MVP. Josh Allen had a terrific, terrific year, and especially when the narrative going into the year was, the Bills are going to regress. Josh Allen doesn't have a number one weapon anymore. Josh Allen's going to regress. The Bills are not going to make the... again, there was a lot of anti-Bills talk in the offseason, and Josh Allen shut them all up. And this isn't to, he was just out there by himself. The Bills had no one. James Cook led all running backs in the AFC with touchdowns. He's obviously great. Shakir is really good. They had some young weapons, too. The offensive line was also great, but, there wasn't any stars that he had to deal with. Obviously, Lamar isn't throwing to some... Well, I'd say it's definitely a better cast of characters, but he had Derrick Henry. It's Derrick Henry's better than James Cook. And then it's Zay Flowers better than Khalil Shakir. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely better than Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, and yada yada yada. It goes on. But like to say that Josh Allen didn't deserve the award, that feels very unfair. So yeah, Josh Allen gets the award. Those are the awards. That's the NFL Weekly Update. This is essentially the end of the episode. Again, I said at the end of the last episode too, great year. I love doing this. Happy to talk all things NFL, but now we are officially at my favorite part of the season, the offseason, where the Dolphins do not play football, where they can break my heart into a million different pieces every single Sunday. From now until the start of next season, I can only get my hopes higher about the Dolphins. I don't think I'm going to get them that high this year because, again, we got a whole offseason to talk about it, but I love the offseason. I love to see how these teams spend their money, the way that they draft. I will get very deep into the draft a little bit. We got the combine to talk about, then free agency. So basically how the offseason is going to look for me. For next week's episode will probably be my first mock draft of the year. The next week, it'll be the Combine episode, so we'll talk about some of these freaky athletic prospects. Going to be NFL Weekly Update every week as well. Then we'll get into some free agency stuff. More, again, it's going to be a lot of draft, free agency heavy episodes. And then it's basically, once the draft is done, that's when the slow season starts. And that's when I have to figure out what kind of episodes I want to do, but that's when I get into Hall of Very Good. I did player rankings last year. I'm not going to do that again because that's just way too much in general. So I want to have more fun episodes to talk about. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, going to be a good offseason. Lots of draft, lots of free agency stuff to talk about, and we'll start slowly talking about that stuff next week. But yeah, I guess that'll do it. And as always, if you like this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, tell your friends, and until next time, peace.